Hello there. Welcome back to the Right to Bear Farms podcast. It's Ed and Jerome here.
Hi,
Hi,
hi.
Jerome.
Hello, hello.
Right. So, a couple of things I wanted to mention before we get into the actual podcast
hmm
is we've made quite good progress on our website, and that's something you can check out. Also, I guess that's going to be ready properly in about a week or two, right?
Yeah, should be.
We should be ready to go then.
hmm
And with the planning and zoning permits for the land, we're meeting an architect. As This is an urban architect, the middle of next week. So that should give us a clear idea about what the next steps are, at least. Now, hopefully, this guy will be okay. I mean, it maybe he's not. Maybe we have to go and find another one. But I want to be totally transparent about this process, because what we will go through, anyone else trying to do a similar thing will have similar kind of issues. So I'm just going to be completely transparent about it. It's the third time I've tried to engage an urban architect, and each time I've come away with new lessons from the meeting. And this time I think we've got it right. We'll see. I want to be completely transparent about all that as well. So we'll be as transparent as we can with information that's public. Anybody who gets in contact with me directly, once we're collaborating in some way, if you become a paying member or join the community in some way, you'll get more inside information as best as we can give away, as much as we can talk about, because some things are just really not in anybody's interest to be made public, but I can explain why. So that's that. And yeah, and I believe we're going to do a conversation about communications issues and why Romania versus other locations for doing such an off-grid community. Is that it?
Yeah, well, that was the plan.
Okay.
It
Okay.
might
So
might still be the plan, but also I came across some videos I was just watching. I did some research on farming, and I want to briefly touch upon that because I think it's really interesting. It's freshly in my mind. So
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So what's the subject of that? What's the title for that part of the podcast, would you
Oh, the
say?
title. I don't know.
What are we going to talk about? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what I want to talk about is I'll introduce it. I want to talk briefly about just farming in general.
Hmm.
Also because that's such a big part of starting this community, automated farming as well. But why do we do it? What's the reason behind it? I want to talk about this. So, because I'm from like not really an agricultural background. I mean, my mom is into gardening. She's done this her entire life, and she has her own small kitchen garden, I think you'd call it. And I've been helping her with that during my time of growing up. So I know a little bit about it. But the thing is with kitchen gardens, for example, is it can help you out. It can grow you a little bit of your own vegetables, your own potatoes, your own whatever. Especially, but in a Western setting, it's not like your main food source. Like definitely not. For us, it definitely wasn't. It's more like a hobby. And when you would go and make the decision to like do your own homesteading project or even your own off-grid community project, like we're trying to do, then we would go to this level where we are starting to get self-sufficient, where we would actually grow like more than 90% of our own food. So why is that? What is the reason behind that, right? So that got me thinking, because one of the main reasons for me is because I have learned over the years that the way that the conventional food we eat is produced is done in a way which is very efficient because we have many people to feed, right? But that could raise the question, well, maybe this deduces from the quality, or reduces, I mean, from the quality you get from the food you buy in the store. I mean, we have organic food for a reason, yeah? So I was kind of looking into this. What is really the difference between organic food and inorganic food? Well, the difference that I was taught, and that most people, I think, think the difference is that organic food is not sprayed with, or at least with pesticides that are synthetic. I think the organic standards sometimes, like some pesticides are allowed, but they have to be of a specific standard. But that's a general idea, like no pesticides, and also, making sure that you are using the least amount of chemicals required in order to make the food, and to do it in a quote unquote natural way, right? That's like the view, that's like the perspective most people have on organic farming. However, is this really achievable to make enough food for the entire population? That's always also been kind of a discussion point, right? It's also always been an ongoing debate. And from what I have seen so far during my research, it's a very simple answer: no. Like if we would all switch to organic farming, there would be less than half of the food required to sustain the current world population. That's a very simple metric. But then it occurred to me, okay, well, that might be true, but we are not trying to sustain the entire world population at this point. We are trying to set up a community, which is in a number of maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30. We'll see where we get, right? But it will not be on such a massive scale. So we have the luxury of making our own food and making it to the standards that we want to eat it, right? So instead of saying organic farming is better for the world, for example, I'm now more of the opinion where I'm saying organic farming is better for me as a person, because it will help me reduce the amount of chemicals that are in my food, or the amount of hormones and the amount of what is it called, not antidote, but other medicine that they pump into animals, for example, in order to not get sick, which is, well, required, because we are having very large animal populations, because we need to, farm them, because we need to actually get food from them. So, Of course, they're required. But if you keep it on a small scale, like kind of a luxury scale, then it's not the case. And that was kind of what I was thinking about. So I don't really have any specific question on this, but I would like to get your thoughts on this, Ed. Like, how do you see this topic? Are you of the same opinion as I am on this?
No.
Tell me. Why?
Okay. Right. Well, you covered a lot of points there.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry. It was
from when you started to when you finished, because I'm not a youngster like you. I kind of lost track of what you were saying at the beginning.
Do ask if I'm unclear.
But there are some things that I would disagree with. Firstly, I don't buy. I mean, you kind of answered the question that I'm going to answer. I don't buy the idea that the world's population can't be supported with the can only be supported with industrial corporate style farming, right? I just don't buy that. I tell you what really could change things if there wasn't so many resources wasted on other insane things. What wars?
But I'm talking specifically about land use, I would say. So how to efficiently use land. I'm also not trying to say that we need massive corporations, but I'm more of the way of farming, right? Like organic compared to not organic.
What I suggest is probably efficiently uses land is farming animals, right? But we're all being told that farming animals is bad for the environment.
That's one of the uses that we definitely
right. So my view would be, well, I'm sorry, where this opinion you've got about this, the inability to support the human population without having industrial corporate style farming, which is, I guess, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where have you got that opinion from?
I'll link the source, because I don't know the source out of my head, but I just dig through an entire list of sources and videos on YouTube.
It doesn't matter if
Mhm.
it's information from YouTube.
Yeah, it's
Yeah?
information from YouTube.
So you're talking about these are things that other people who claim farming knowledge. These are claims they're making, right?
Yeah, and he did
So,
list the source. I'll check the source.
but it doesn't matter. I mean, I can take the stuff in good faith, because I know the argument. I mean, this is the argument is basically we can't possibly sustain ourselves as the human population can't possibly sustain itself unless it has industrial scale farming with industrial scale fertilizer production and all this kind of thing, right? So that I mean, yeah, it might be true, okay. And what's the point that I because of that I shouldn't be allowed to keep chickens?
No, that's just so. That's exactly not what I mean. That's not
Okay,
my point at all. Right?
But I'm not sure. So what's actually
point-
your point?
yeah,
Because
sure.
are we trying to save the entire planet and the
No,
human
no.
race?
This is the point.
Trying to
Yeah. Okay. So it's good that you point this out. Like the point that I'm trying to make is that
Yeah.
what you said, and what I think is true. I'll list the source. Is that for the entire world population, it would probably not be a good idea for all farming in the world to be done organically, because that
Okay,
was
but how I would answer that very quickly with a practical solution.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe wrong. Let's experiment in some places and see what results we get. Okay, I'd
sure.
rather that than you make laws telling me that I can't keep chickens
Sure.
and then claim all these huge global pandemic style
Yeah,
animal
but
disasters
again, that's a
where
very
people,
different thing, right?
where people have to kill all their animals and then totally demoralize farmers and stop them wanting to farm at all. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
clear.
because that kills the global food supply, right? And
It's clear to me what the game is, so
yeah,
I'm kind of done with these kind of conversations.
yeah,
Like my solution is like this: either you let me farm so-called organically, but I don't like that term because I think it's misleading,
Hmm.
right? But that's another whole conversation about why that's
yeah,
misleading.
yeah.
But either you let me keep animals and farm unimpeded, we're called the right to bear farms for a
Exactly. Yeah,
reason, right?
yeah,
Either you do that or I'm just going to move somewhere where I can.
yeah.
And if you keep on cornering me in different parts of the globe, then I'm going to get really pissed, along with all the other
Fair,
people that
and
have
that's
the
fair enough. Yeah, yeah,
so like all I'm asking to is just to be left alone to at least experiment and try other ways, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
these you talked about fertilizer and pesticides, right? Let's talk about pesticides.
Well,
There's
hold on.
lots.
Before you go to this different topic, because I haven't made my
No,
point yet. Still,
I want to make a point about pesticides.
okay, we both want to make points.
Yeah, so I want to make a point to answer
Yeah,
your question about pesticides.
yeah.
So pesticides, um, uh, there are lots of ways of controlling pests and new and evolving ways of controlling pests
Mhm.
that don't involve pesticides, right? Now, the problem with pesticides and trying to replace them is not the pesticides themselves, it's what's ethically good. Because the people behind the companies that produce these things are not decent, ethically minded people. They care just about profit, right? So you're competing with these, like one product that has this huge political campaign behind it, pushing it.
You're
Like
talking about Roundup. Yeah,
Roundup is a good one. Roundup
yeah.
is a good one, right?
Hmm.
So Roundup, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a biochemist. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I'm telling you, if I can put a bunch of chickens and ducks into my crop that eat all the insects and that has the same result, I think that's better than the chemical. I don't think I need to be a
Yeah.
rocket scientist to know that,
Hmm.
I think that's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
And I would be delighted. Anybody watching this video, I do this on my videos,
Hmm.
is please contradict what I'm saying in
Yeah.
the comments with evidence, because I don't believe it,
Yeah.
right? And I think if you use that example, you can pretty much find a way to roll those kind of answers out across all types of farming.
Hmm.
Whatever, whether it's about the pest control, protection from the weather, the temperature. There are all sorts of interesting solutions for things. There are a million and one different ways to solve the same problem,
Mhm.
and farmers are globally famous for not wanting to try new shit, right? You know, this is a they get very personally attached to what they do and the way they do it, and trying to suggest that they do new stuff, you know, not you doesn't make you a popular person, right?
Yeah.
But I think
I mean, change is hard.
if people see things working
Mhm.
and you can't deny it,
Yeah.
then that's different. Because at
Then
some
we'll
point
get
they
in the
go,
bandwagon. Yeah.
at some point they'll reluctantly go, okay, yeah, maybe the guy's got a point, you
But
know?
and this has happened many times in the past, right? Because if there is literally like if your neighbor or your neighboring farmer is using a method that allows this guy to produce that much more for this much less money, of course you're going to do it, right? It takes time, but that's with technology, right? But about this thing, you know, like you using your chickens or your ducks to eat your insects, which might very well work. I mean, there's a thing called permaculture, and I think people from that community can definitely tell you what works and what doesn't.
Did you say permaculture then?
Yes, permaculture.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But
Okay.
again, with permaculture,
Yeah.
right? Which I like the concept, this kind of food forest idea, and you know the systems with the water, use of the water, use of the natural environment, of creating like an ecosystem, but with loads of edible plants in it. That's the basic idea. I love all this stuff, right?
Me too.
But for some reason, these people that are into this kind of stuff, and I'm not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of anti-technology, right? And what I love about that is when they're anti-technology, making YouTube videos about it on a smartphone. Like, so are you anti-technology, or are you just anti some kinds of technology? You know, do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
What is it about? I think it's something psychological. They don't like the idea of plants and robots or something, or maybe they don't like the idea of robots.
Perhaps it's just this kind of natural sense, right? Of, you know, we are trying to make an ecosystem where nature is the controller of the process instead of our artificial, technology being disrupting the process. Maybe that's like the general vibe.
Okay, but I think if you take what's that, an ethical argument, or what kind of argument is that exactly?
You tell me. Like you're asking me why don't they like the smartphones and stuff? You know,
like if you're going to have ducks, right, go around and eat all the insects, right? Mm-hmm. Those insects are life forms just like the ducks, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, all life on Earth, apart from things that eat just vegetation, the vast majority of animal life on Earth eats other living creatures of one sort or another, right?
Also happens,
so that's how life works. So, I mean, it's quite scary, really, the fact that most things are surviving by eating other things, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't really get what the arguments are. I mean, I don't actually get that. I don't know how people say they're anti-technology when they dare to use a smartphone, because the smartphone is thousands and thousands of innovations in one device. You know,
again,
so
I think you're putting people in boxes right now, which doesn't really help.
Okay.
But in general, yeah, sure. I think a lot of you. I'm not saying you're wrong. In general, a lot of people in that kind of sphere tend to think like that, sure. But I think permaculture is a form of innovation and technology as well, right?
1 second. The reason why I want to mention it is because this is a thing that I'm hitting the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. So there's one group of people that want to, you know, sit around the bonfire in the evening and sing songs and do this kind of stuff,
kind of
be
the
like
hippie segment,
hippie kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's these other people who are into technology. Mm-hmm. And kind of a bit confused when it comes to farming. And my whole idea was to bring these two things together, because I think there's a very big problem in all the young people, the young smart people, of which I'd like to think you include yourself in that group.
You tell
Young
me.
smart, very good answer. So the young smart people are leaving the countryside and going to the cities and going to factory jobs because it's much easier. There's nothing complex about it. You know, you go to a factory job, you get told what to do, you're in a reasonably comfortable office, or you're out in all sorts of weather pulling plants out of the ground and tending to the plants
It's hard work.
with insects biting you. You know, personally, I love the idea of being able to sit in front of my computer and watch my robots going around in the horrible weather outside, doing all these horrible, boring jobs, and bringing me fresh food.
I mean, that's like, a you thing, I guess. But I mean, it doesn't sound bad, you know.
proper Star Trek stuff, that is.
Sure. But also, don't forget, because in this day and age, farmers aren't exactly the heroes of our countries, right? And many years ago, you know, farmers, and they still are, they're the people that are providing us food. They're the people that make living in the city, you know, possible. So it's a very, like, I think for a lot of farmers still, but it was more socially accepted back, I don't know, maybe let's say longer than 70 years ago, right? Then it was actually a socially acceptable job, or even better than acceptable, you know.
Well, sorry, I've got a lot to say there.
Sure.
Yeah, so do bear in mind, farmers have, you know, absolutely been deliberately targeted.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, which is utterly insane.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Literally, the people who grow the food, you're telling me that these are bad, nasty people. This is utter bullshit. This is all about controlling the food supply.
Yeah, and we went from subsidizing farmers to actually subsidizing them farming less, for example, in the UK, right? Yeah, where you get like, I think like £392 per, I don't know how much land you stop using for farming to just let the land rest.
Well, I mean, that's utter madness, of course, and some insane decision like that should only go to a referendum in which nobody would support it, or only the you know, a crazy 10%. But somehow the government has decided that's a good strategy for all of us.
But here's the thing, all right? Because here's the thing with that.
When people are starving, they're going to understand that.
Of course, you know, but it'll take time. But that's the thing, and also why I kind of brought this topic up. You really brought us there, kind of looping around, because you got things like permaculture, which in essence are, I think, very cool things to do. Like, it's a very cool type of science as well, to grow your own food in harmony with the ecosystem you live in, so you don't have to use kind of all these outside influences like pesticides and whatever, or extra fertilizer as well. That's a big one. To be able to grow your crops, right? And then you also got organic farming, which kind of it means less efficiency of the land for either ethical reasons, or again for not using things like pesticides and fertilizers. Then you got like these big societal problems of, well, we have so many people to feed, they need food, you know, are we going to give them this top tier quality? Let's assume it is top tier quality at this point, right? I'm saying organic and permaculture. I want to finish real quick.
One thing about the organic stuff, sorry, I'm going to do it. One thing about the organic stuff and what you call top tier food, did you say? Use it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just bear in mind that probably half the population of Romania and probably 90% of the rural population of Romania are growing that stuff in their own gardens, right?
Yeah.
And they grow animals. They have all these methods to preserve meat. You know, I mean, you can preserve meat in meat fats. Did you know that? I didn't know that. There's so many things you can do that are done here, just normal practice, that are lost skills in the West.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're probably less efficient, right?
No, they're not. They're hard work.
That's less efficient.
Sorry,
right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, nice one. Yeah,
there we go.
Very good. Yeah, they're hard work. They are less efficient compared with something automated or heavily used.
They don't compare to the like 500 hectare dairy farms that I have here in the Netherlands, right? It's not comparable in efficiency.
So I heard a thing about chickens, right? I don't know about dairy because larger animals are much harder to deal with. But I heard a thing about chickens that actually you don't need to stick too many chickens into a an area to a village or a town or whatever, to massively reduce landfill waste from waste food and supply everybody with eggs. I mean, that can be done with not that many chickens in the scheme of things, given to locals raising them. The reason it can't be done is regulations stopping people doing that for no logical reason I can work out, right? So it seems to me that's just like a kind of corporate mafia that is stopping people doing small scale farming.
Yeah,
and it's utterly ridiculous. So
and that's the thing with permaculture, right, and stuff like that. Because in a sense,
I guess what would be really interesting would be to do some experiments with this stuff and try and do the numbers, because I don't know.
No,
I did like my gut feel tells me that if you take a country like America or the West, where a significant number of the people are significantly overweight, they could probably, and I know about the waste food statistics, lots of food is wasted and binned, right? So if you stop the waste food and you fed them half as much as they're eating, just in terms of volume, cut half the food supply, they're certainly not going to starve to death. So because most of them, and you're going to have a much less load on the health service, because all these people aren't overweight, right?
No, but they would still have malnutrition problems because most of them probably eat stuff that don't even contain that much nutrition in the first place.
Yeah,
right?
So no, that's a wholly different. Well, that's related, but a wholly different.
Sure. But fun to bring up. But still, I want to make this like really, really clear what I mean. So with permaculture, which is such a novel way of farming and is in ethical terms very good and whatever, and brings you good food, whatever. Maybe it can be about as efficient. Like I don't think it can be as efficient as like the very like automated farms we have in the Netherlands and everywhere in the world, where it's just like at competitive standards. It might get close to it, but for every permaculture farm that we create, and due to all these regulations that governments are pushing, all the regular small scale farms out there, like there's probably 1,000 that are being closed because of just the market demanding too much from them, like the price being too low, and it just requires these massive farms in order to stay even relevant or just to break even, right? So on the one hand, you have these very positive videos like permaculture this, homestead this, but it is it's not a right, it's more of a privilege, I think. In the sense that
that's what we're aiming to change, though, isn't it? I mean, like in my world, right?
Yeah.
In my world, the world I'd like, there should be virtually no farming regulations on small scale farming by individuals.
Yeah.
And we should all be able to trade with each other in whatever currency we like, in cash, with no tax implications, nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to stop people getting really poor and into the like sort of poverty, under the poverty line or whatever they call it, and everybody to be able to survive on their own to some extent, which of course governments don't actually want that. They want you dependent. But let's say in a world where we have ethical people in power, that would be the logical thing to do. Just help everybody farm on a small scale. If you know nothing, you have resources and a way to get started. You don't have to jump through endless planning hoops just to build a smaller house. You can put some kind of building on your land to get started and work your way up. Because this is another thing, right? If you want to just build a house, this hasn't ever been the case for most of history. It's very recent. And although when you're in urban situations, there are obvious, very clear reasons for having regulations. It's absolutely absurd in the countryside on any piece of land, pretty much, that you can't just build something to get going. Because what that does is the very poor people, it gives them immediately 10 or 20, 30, 40, 50,000 euros they have to find just to survive. And then that's what you're showing them in one hand. In the other hand, you're showing them welfare. Which constantly makes them vote for the same socialists that gave them the welfare.
And it doesn't create any value. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas
So,
if there wasn't any regulation or just simple one, and they would be able to
yeah,
grow
yeah.
their
I
own
mean,
food. Yeah,
I'm not
I
saying
get your point.
that you have zero regulation, but certainly, I mean, you can use something like chickens as a test case. I mean, please, anybody out there, please make the arguments for me why I can't have chickens in my garden, because I'd love to hear them.
Hmm.
You know, because if it's about the neighbours, cool. I'll go with the other people who are okay with chickens. We'll move somewhere else and keep our chickens. You carry on paying your insane food prices, but please stay where you are. Don't follow us complaining. You
Fair
know,
point. I wanted to. Yeah.
I'm speaking metaphorically, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I get the idea. I get the idea. Yeah. And so, and that's like, how do I put this? There's there's the dilemma of feeding a population, and there's the dilemma on a more personal level, what we are more, trying to tackle, to have this personal level set up where, if you want, you can just set up your own small farm. And for me personally, what I was thinking about is that I want some good quality food. I want to know how my food is made. I want to know what's in it. So that's for me the main primary reason why I would grow it myself. But again, I think that's a luxury, right? And yeah, well, to link it back to it shouldn't be a luxury is what you say, but that's more in the rights one. But for me, it's more of a privilege that I go for. Then I would say it's a problem to a global dilemma, which I don't think it is. I don't think, for example, our community, it's not a solution to what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Okay. If you're talking about people starving and this kind of thing, that's happening in countries where they can't manage the entire countries, right? And frequently those countries have vast resources, right? I mean, vast resources. If they just took, if they just took the oil or the gold or
That's a whole nother dilemma, yeah.
or the rare earths or whatever,
yeah,
and stop trying to rob and kill each other constantly and actually work together to exploit those things and sell them to the West, they'd be fine.
Yeah, but that's not a 5-hour video, the natural resource
I know,
dilemma.
but I'm just saying it. Like, I'm not sure how it's relevant. Anyways, sorry, go on, carry on.
I think that's mostly what I meant. So, and there's like, we want to enable the rights for people to bear farms. But I think still, if let's say that this comes through in some miraculous reason that everywhere in the world there will be less regulation on this and people would be enabled and allowed to, have their own small homesteads. Probably most people will still not do this because they would rather, like you say, have their welfare and their cheap supermarket food with, diluted products and over-processed products with sugar and corn and wheat, and that's about it, and not much else in nutrition wise. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm getting on myself right now, actually, but it was kind of that realization where organic is cool, permaculture is cool on a personal level, but I don't think it's going to be a solution, let's say. But that's different. That's apart from just being able to do small scale farming, because organic and permaculture are just ways to do whatever kind of farming. Small scale farming should definitely be, enabled, so people just can manage their own business and have their own capital and not be subject to whatever laws a government is kind of forcing them in that sense.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon at the next podcast. When are we doing next one? Like every week, we want to do one at least, or every few days, I suppose.
I think it's best not to put any dates on that, but
No.
Yeah, just stay in touch, stay updated. Just check the channel once in a while, but weekly definitely, at least. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good stuff then.
Cool. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.